It is now time for the sponsor perspective session of the program. We are joined by Kristen Clifford, Chief Program Officer of the Alzheimer's Association, in conversation with Joe Montminy, a patient advocate who also lives with Alzheimer's disease. And for the second part of our sponsor perspective, Dr. Maria Carrillo, the Chief Science Officer of the Alzheimer's Association, will be in conversation with Jason Jedlinski, publisher and General Manager of The Hill.
Thank you so much for being with us today, Joe. As you know, the FDA's accelerated approval pathway is a critical tool for bringing therapies to patients currently living with unmet medical need. As a person living with Alzheimer's, where treatments are just beginning to emerge, but the unmet need remains so vast, what does accelerated approval mean to you?
Thanks, Kristen. Accelerated approval gives people like me an opportunity to have timely access to new treatments. My disease is fatal. There are limited treatments, and no survivors. Researchers are struggling to find a cure. So having timely access to new treatments could mean, I remain independent longer. And that could mean I have more time with my family, which is especially important because I have two sons who are in their mid-20s. I could watch them get married and maybe even have children of their own. And that's something that I've long wanted to do. But I gave up hope on that once I got my diagnosis.
Thank you, Joe. So all of that being said, are you concerned about efforts that would potentially limit the FDA's ability to utilize the accelerated approval pathway or potentially undermine confidence in the pathway?
Actually, I would be concerned about decisions that are being made without hearing from individuals that are living with serious or fatal diseases like Alzheimer's disease. Our ability to decide what risk we're comfortable taking needs to be considered. There isn't a medication out there that doesn't have risk. And I think it's critically important for the over 6 million people like me. It's our only hope.
Hope is so crucial. In the coming months, as Congress considers changes to the accelerated approval pathway, what would you want them to hear from people living with unmet medical need?
I would want Congress to know what it feels like, to have a progressive fatal disease that has limited treatments. It's a scary place to be. And I'd like Congress to give me the same opportunities that accelerated approval has given individuals with cancer or HIV. I don't have the luxury of time. Accelerated approval gives people like me hope that I might retain my cognitive skills for a longer period of time, hope that it'll be a while until I need assistance, getting dressed or eating, and hope that I can live at my home with my family for as long as possible.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives with us today.
Well, we're thrilled to be joined today by the Alzheimer's Association's Dr. Maria Carrillo. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your support of this program.
Great to be with you. Thank you so much, Jason.
So Alzheimer's research has been in the news and drug development quite a bit recently. Can you start by bringing us up to speed and give us an overview of where that research stands today?
Well, I'll tell you, it is a very exciting and hopeful time right now, more than ever before, and certainly has its challenges, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Let's put it that way. It's such an exciting time. It is actually, for the first time, so meaningful for people living with dementia and their families. I'll start by saying that since the enactment of the National Alzheimer's Project Act in 2011, the Alzheimer's Association has actually worked with bipartisan congressional champions to increase federal funding more than 7-fold. That's been a key, I think, to keeping Alzheimer's at the forefront, not only in media, but also in the minds of researchers and bringing researchers into the field to help us accelerate progress. Annual funding in fiscal year 2022 for Alzheimer's research will be more than $3.4 billion, something many said could not be done. But during this same time, we at the Alzheimer's Association have expanded our international research grant program because we feel that this is important to fuel research progress at every stage across the globe, with advancing bold ideas and raising high impact projects that have huge potential for the field on a global scale. So Add that to the FDA's accelerated approval of Aduhelm this past June, and we've really entered into a new era of Alzheimer's, not only detection, but also now treatment. And we all know this is not a cure. And this new drug is the first FDA approved drug shown to slow or at least slow clinical decline through the clearance of one of those defining brain changes in Alzheimer's disease, the amyloid plaques in the brain. And the decades of research has shown that this does have some impact on brain function. We also know that firsts are never perfect. They're never easy or, clean. They might be a little messy, but they're firsts. And that's really the hope that we have. There are many more treatments, not only in the anti-amyloid class of drugs, but even beyond in the pipeline. But in particular, for anti-amyloid treatments, it includes Eli Lilly treatment, donanemab. Eisai and Biogen have a collaboration for lecanemab. Roche is moving forward with gantenerumab's program, all of which received breakthrough designation by the FDA in 2021 to speed that development of these treatments. And that, again, should add to the hope for all of our families across the country.
It is certainly an exciting time for progress. Turning to the congressional side of this, the regulatory side, what do you think our lawmakers should prioritize as they look at making changes to the accelerated approval pathway that has been so key to encouraging scientific innovation and also preserving that for patients who are currently living with unmet needs with this disease?
Yeah, such an important issue before so many of us, even outside of Alzheimer's space. We do know that when Congress passed the initial law authorizing accelerated approval, and at every reauthorization, they've done what's right. They've reaffirmed this pathway, and the FDA has been very encouraged to utilize the pathway on behalf of patients. Lives have been saved, extended, and improved because of the pathway. On behalf of people living with Alzheimer's and other diseases, we want to make sure that Congress maintains and strengthens this accelerated approval pathway because we are one of those diseases with a critical unmet need.
And in what ways does limiting the FDA's ability to use that tool, the pathway and all that the promise it's shown, what consequences does that have for the patients that you see?
Yes, excellent question, because it's important for all of us to reset and understand that Alzheimer's is a fatal disease. There is no cure. Treatments are fairly limited and perhaps offer relief for a limited time. For those of us who have witnessed a loved one facing Alzheimer's disease and the consequences of this disease, they're all too real and devastating. I am one of those individuals with multiple family members. And this is really about preserving quality of life. It's about preserving time with loved ones during a time when it is most meaningful, right? Not necessarily the cancer model when it's extending life. So the accelerated approval pathway provides an opportunity for individuals with limited options to access those options. Those options may not be for everyone, but they should be available for those that it would benefit. And accelerated approval allows for that earlier approval of those drugs that treat those serious conditions that fill that unmet need. Alzheimer's is a fatal disease with no survivors currently. So new and better treatments, especially those that use novel mechanisms of action, are urgently needed for Alzheimer's and other dementia. Our families need them now.
You stress fatal disease, and that brings to mind the way HIV in the not too distant past went from a death sentence to a chronic disease that can be managed, and in large part because of accelerated approval pipelines. So treatments for cancer and rare diseases are emerging through that same pathway. I guess, what are you looking for as you speak to our lawmakers about continuing to offer that same hope to patients living with Alzheimer's?
Well, exactly. Thanks to that accelerated approval pathway, we have seen tremendous progress in treatment for other diseases. And these accelerated approvals have meant so much to many individuals that are dealing with facing tough and fatal diagnoses. Congress has the ability to continue this progress and give people hope. It's important for Congress not to lose sight of that patient, of their perspective, their family's perspective, their tolerance for risk, and what treatments are approved through that accelerated approval and what it might mean for them and their families.
If you think of the changes that you would like to see to the pathway as you advocate for families and medical professionals, what are a couple examples of changes that you'd hope to see?
Well, I think it is very important that as we evolve as a new treatment era, real world clinical outcomes have to be collected. We recognize that. They have to be analyzed and shared with practitioners, with clinical researchers and others, especially for those who are treating patients every day, so that we can be responsive in real time to the changes and needs that might come as a result of experiencing these new treatments in real time in the clinic. That's exciting. It's an exciting place to be, even though we recognize we have to deal with these challenges. The Alzheimer's Association is very supportive of updates to the accelerated approval pathway that expands acceptable real-world evidence that can be used, gathered to fulfill post-approval, full approval study requirements, to confirm the predicted clinical outcomes and of benefit that we all are looking for, of course. So specifically, we support evidence based on the analysis of data in clinical care, data repositories, patient registries, and other sources for real-world evidence. We also believe the registry-based studies of large numbers of participants is a viable option to secure data and evidence to address potential effectiveness in the long term. We know this might not be possible in the short term, depending on the type of registry and patient support. But this past October, the Alzheimer's Association and other partners actually announced that we ourselves were launching the National Treatment and Diagnostic Alzheimer's Registry. We're calling it ALZNet. And this registry does aim to monitor and report clinical safety endpoints for patients treated with any novel FDA-approved therapy, including their accompanying diagnostics, because we understand that this landscape is very complicated with these first class of treatments that are coming through the pipeline. And we need those real-world setting examples. Similar successful registries have been launched, so we know this can be done. This is done in heart, in cancer, and multiple sclerosis, et cetera. And so we can do this. We need to do this. And so we ask Congress, of course, to support the use of these types of pathways to address these unmet needs, but to also support the ability for us to gather that real world evidence. And so we appreciate that Congress is looking at the accelerated approval pathway and that any policy should be evaluated through this lens. And we also encourage that we think that Congress should encourage FDA to use internal and external expertise in understanding the latest of science and to use that latest science to support accelerated approval.
More evidence, more data, better outcomes, better decisions. It's a very compelling argument. Thank you again so much, Dr. Maria Carrillo, Chief Science Officer for the Alzheimer's Association. Thank you for being with us, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. It's great to be a part of this critical discussion.
Thanks again to Dr. Maria Carrillo and the Alzheimer's Association for supporting today's important conversations.